So there was this issue back over the last 100 years until recently, until 2025, as the second Trump administration came back in and took what they learned from the first time in 2016 and then straight up just ignored everything that was happening and started replacing all of the edicts coming out of various bizarre places in Washington D.C. city. Like the whole thing became a CIA administration hub to destroy the world. So there was this issue, especially in like 2005 to 2008, where they were basically trying to find all of the people who wouldn't go along with the takeover of America by police gangs through the CIA, of course. The police wouldn't have the balls otherwise. So they sent all of these men and some women, anyways, a lot of men to the Middle East and had them purposely get killed. Convoys, attacked, all pre planned and inside, targeted from within the U.S. military, is what I'm saying. Now, the man that I was relying on, the man who was my friend, went to the Middle East 20 years ago and died through this method. So I waited around feeling like I'd been blown to bits for 20 years until I got to the point where it's like there's a fulcrum of 20 years now on this side where it turns out the CIA was just bacteria the whole time. There is no source. There is no time space. It's pushing its ideals, its agendas, like nuclear piss from the most evil possible sources shoved in everyone's faces in their electrical systems, and other things that no one's allowed to talk about or think about too hard. Like urine is uranium. They get uranium from urine. Nobody wants to think about that. Like there's a connection in their brain. No, the bacteria won't let them. Maybe people have gotten over it in the last few months because that man who died didn't die now. I felt the moment now 20 years later, and I do what I do. I made the vehicle flip differently, spin. I think of it like ballet dancing with bombs, except they're cars, SUVs, armored Humvees. So here we are looking at these tanks. Okay, I'm going to. They're showing off auto, this and that, and all this stuff that's existed for decades. None of this is new that they're showing off here. I'm confused. Thicker armor, all this is. Me and Grant discussed all this years ago. And other people did. Now, all I wanted to come in and do in this video after all that intro was I needed to say all of that because you need to understand why I'm inspired to make better equipment, because I don't like it when my friends die. Okay, so it's got to show here somewhere. Where is it? Oh, here we go.
Coming. So although
Okay.
the actual vehicle, but the final turret design is
Okay,
definitely going to
then.
be different. Allegedly, a new turret is being worked on some years back.
See, this looks all futuristic at the angles, and none of it means anything though. So there's the simplest thing they discuss in this video. They're making it so one person, if the other people are incapacitated, as they say in this video, can sorry, my lungs are inverting after the whatever plague they gave me in torture jail. May all my lungs tissue grow the wrong directions versus the heart. Whew. So I could strain the bacteria, whatever it was, out of my body. Okay, so the thing is, they say one man in these new tanks. We gotta show this off. Me and Grant thought this was a hilarious idea, at least for the prototype. Here's somewhere there's a game controller that we designed for driving the tank, and everybody's whiny because they act like it's not. Oh, there it is. Like that's not valid. How is this not a valid solution? Whatever works. Now, it might not be robust enough, rugged enough. That was our, conclusion, but it's a good first concept. Okay, so on to what I was going to describe though. The main thing that happens is people, concussions reverberate vibrate through the metal of the tank, and then it causes, nosebleeds, unconsciousness, difficulty understanding what people are saying, etc. So that's the incapacitated thing. That's what tanks are such a nightmare, right? So no one has gotten into fixing this singular issue, as if there's those Russian tanks that go at high speed and leap, and they have sort of, primitive like hammock spring chair combinations in there that it was proprietary. They didn't want to show off for a long time. Now I'm going to go way past that. Way, way, way. So a tank, let's see if we can get an angle here. Basically there's the compartment within there that people are going to be in, and then this, then they can kind of stand up in this area because it's hollow, and then it revolves around, with the whole barrel top. Okay, so when a mortar, when a bomb, whatever, something goes off next to it, partially underneath, the, metal's going to ring so aggressively that it's going to kill people up in there. That's the problem, right? So they've come up with different, I'm sure foams and stuff, but have they really gone in and made it so that the whole box is resting within like a super mesh true polymer from cutting edge plant research, plants that grow in the ground, and then you produce it at manufacturing plants? Why is that the same word? I don't. Wow, the English language is really screwed up. I used to speak using more Latin, but people didn't understand what I was saying. Anyways, so just like they make different types of mattresses, it would be way more rigid, but then you need to have within those polymer zones, like there's multiple different things you can do. Like you can have um, hollow points with like gas pressure. Um, you can have uh, magnetics. They're making strides since we asked for it for, magnetic embedding into polymers. But also the magnetics, like the box you're in there there needs to be magnetics in the tank area outside versus the inside, and then you're floating. And so when a concussion happens, it's going to be canceled out by the magnetic floating that kind of turns the bouncing and jouncing into invisible energy that's oomping around within the magnetic fields, which saves lives. Um, hmm. Now I've uh described. Oh wow, I mean, I described it a long time ago to people. There's this other concept where the actual tank tire things that the treads run on, you have an like um you have a magnetic socket that's um got like auto squish injection that like airbags, but like when a hard enough impact happens, then it like is hyper speed when one with the vibration. You would have like some sort of breakable foam, well, polyfoam gel in there, like I always say, just like with cars, but you'd make it more, for high pressure and, tensile reverberations. So it would basically pressurize out from inside a little chamber out into the axle of the whole wheel and like be a counter, like gas into foam explosion that would neutralize the incoming impact, and then mixed with what I described before. Now here's the final secret to all of it though. Inside of the tank where they're sitting, you need to have these chairs that do these specific things. Okay, so they're like telescoping. So like they can be like a antenna, shortened down a whole bunch, so then they're like right down near the floor. As they're like the base of the chairs, like these chairs would be ball joints in the floor with like magnetic responsiveness to resonance incoming. And so then the other thing is they can be magnetically and with like a latch and with magnetic assistance, so it's always manual. You can adjust it down at the ball joint base, um, so that whatever angle it is that you relatch it at, then there's like two cones of magnetic force at that angle going towards around the ball joint, so that you have a little wiggle room within the magnetics before it, doesn't go further. Whatever angle the seat's leaning out from the base ball joint to whatever degrees, so that you can use different stuff around different angles in the tank quickly, swivel the whole thing around quickly, um, instantaneously. So then the actual seat you're on would have basically all direction springs, so that when an incoming impact happens and you're leaning on the springs, whichever direction and whatever 360 direction, trying to do whatever, then you're already within a range of bounciness. So then the incoming impact, like a chicken neck, it holds still while everything else moves. You have that effect with these ball joint systems with automatic springy, hyper computing and magnetic timings, so that so long as you're safe on your seat and everything, during a huge concussion hit, then you're gonna survive, I guess. And along with that, you have to have like they had stretchy polymer hammock angles you can either have clipped to your uniform, or you can, of course, grab at them. And they would have winches into the walls, like a seat belt, but um obviously, they need to be able to flex a certain amount. In addition, like the whole winch area of cable in the wall, that whole area needs to have a zone that it can magnetically pop forward and back in the wall. So it's like a double give, as it gives you, spools out more stretchy stuff, and the whole thing's, bounce giving. You always double up everything or it won't work. You have to create a backlog of signal that cancels out the vibrations. Um, this might be blowing everyone's minds, but this is some advanced manufacturing of gels and stuff is what is so great about this. How much advancement has been made in that field for aviation and rockets and cars and who knows what else. um I wanted to also discuss, what, in the same video, I should go ahead and discuss something I meant to do a few days ago. Houses. Um, if you have, um, this is for a different project. New, um, if you have a house foundation, okay, and then they come in with their auto layering cranes that pour the new concrete that Grant came up with. They're pouring their whole foundation around it. Um, wouldn't it make sense um, to have your house floating, so there would be these grooves, so your house would be here and then the foundation's this round circle, so um, there would be like a little groove that your whole house would be sitting in, that in the concrete it would angle down either direction, and then it'd be all sealed so water wouldn't get in there. um like really sealed. But the point is, it would be all filled and sealed with that, squishy whatever. Even um silicone would work. And then when an earthquake happens, the whole house is seated within, resting within this pad. So then this new concrete pad can be, made to be, you know, have all the new features, be water quicking, wicking, whatever, like they have, and all that stuff. So that you can, okay, so An earthquake happens. So this outer lip, say it sticks up a few inches, a foot, whatever. So then you would have, yeah, I know, it's blowing everyone's minds. You'd have actual springs. This is how they need to make houses down in North and South America, right up there by where it turns into Middle America. They've had horrible earthquakes for forever, on and on. They hit every few decades. So all their houses are just collapsing and just crushing people, and it's horrible. And they don't build anything long term. But then the builders come back in and don't learn anything and build houses for poor people that crush them again. So this needs to be employed this time after the recent earthquakes I heard about. Um, so you just put in springs. I'll make the springs, I guess, metal gray. So if you have a bunch of springs, alternately, if you're a fancy Richie, the springs can instead be pistons. I've seen that on houses all over for um, earthquake issues. Um, they've even set up pistons for houses for like amusement areas, like Netflix, you know, physical locations where you go do those silly things we came up with. You know, solve game mansions and stuff. He got whole houses on pistons, you know, inevitably. Um, but really, this needs to be cheaply employed everywhere, uh, so that when the earthquake happens, you're just, you know, bouncing around in a really, you know, sedate manner. None of that juddering from certain earthquakes that shakes everything to bits, you know. That seems pretty simple, right? I mean, like all of our double wides we came up with that slide together and lock and have all these different features, um, heated floors and stuff, cooled floors where it's hot. Um, they're gonna, you know, actually exist here soon. The factories are actually finally getting built for realsies instead of just test beds. And everything I saw early by 20 and 30 years ago will actually exist for real now. So, that's pretty exciting. No more people dying because we'll get these mass printed out double wides and stuff and get them shipped down by train, even in sections, and actually have a connection again to South America after World War II when they removed them, apparently. I know that I'll wake up one day and the world will have changed and there'll be direct roads and trains through, but we're still in the, you know, CIA world where no one's allowed to directly communicate physically across these mountains and this plain of uh, trees, national park. I mean, it's kind of bizarre. How has there not been new railroads and stuff put in? What era am I living in? Is this the 1700s? Where's the development? I always ask. And then one day, boom, it'll be back to being developed and there'll be um and you know, on that day, what will happen? My bowels will unkink, and colon cologne will suddenly not have this bend, and suddenly earthquakes won't be as terrible here, and all this will swing back loose straight, and this whole coastline will line up again out here. and the whole world will untwist from the South Pole and stop doing this bullshit. Because it's all twisted up and locked like a spinning Beyblade, like faster than the rest of the planet could keep up. Or is it slower? Did the poles turn slower or faster? If we consider nitrate slowing things, then you'd assume the everything spun faster, and that's what pulled the South America out this way. Because just a few years from now and a decade ago, everything was completely different than this. This is absurd. This is what happens when you let them launch their Cold War bullshit, and then they claim it happened billions of years ago. They create glaciers with super winters. They have all these different methods. They line them all up and knock them down. And in 2016, we experienced a super winter where they took advantage of the trend in the Northwest, especially where I live, where there'd been more and more and more water, right? This is what they've done historically. They've always had chemicals, is what they do. The earth cycles, and then they wait until the earth has decided to put more rain into an area that was in a desert, especially into the mountains, as snow in the winter. So you'll get 50 to 100 to 200 feet of snow on the peaks, and however much down farther, like huge amounts still, down to lower and lower footage each winter. Then they come in with all their chemicals and nitrates and poisons and butt magic and just make it so all of that snow freezes as glaciers as the earth goes, oh fuck, this is very poisonous, and freezes it into the glaciers to slowly, break it down even as it's frozen. The earth is very alive. And everybody is aware of this, and they want to destroy the earth until recently, until they realized that the new generations of children weren't infected with the same bacteria that makes them auto crave destruction. So then they're like, oh fuck, oh no, what do we do? We can't kill all the children. There's not enough abortion doctors in the world. So here we are, and everything's turning into a realistic world slowly. But in 2016, infinite glaciers happened in the mountains everywhere, and now they crow in victory about how these glaciers are billions of years old. So that's what we're dealing with. And everybody who's gone to public school, they believe it. It's like some bacterial signal. Like, you must believe that our cycles of weather are what we say they are. Well, they're not. They're not at all. So, I got a little distracted there, but still interesting. Yeah, so like in the future you can do things like, of course in cities like I was saying, where you have walkways between buildings and then they're built right into the center core of the skyscrapers, and then the walkways bounce and hold up the skyscrapers between each other during earthquakes. I've discussed that a little. Um, Again, more and more it will be coming down to magnetics combined with springs. Like, you can have magnetic springs where they've been treated to be magnetic so that they're higher resistive while not shattering potentially without becoming brittle. So when a big spring flexes and the different coils come nearer to each other, then they're magnetized so that they repel, and then you get greater tensile softness of reverberations, softenings. Okay, I guess that sums up what I was here to discuss. Bye bye. Oh wait, we're not at 30 minutes yet. We have a few seconds left. Just kidding.